come. Give us each day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, for we ourselves forgive everyone indebted to us. And do not bring us to the time of trial. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. My husband says deja vu. You're going to get it for 2 more weeks. It keeps coming at us. So we're in this 4-week preaching series on the Lord's Prayer. And we are using the verses that are common between Luke and Matthew. And last week we spoke about God the Father, what it means to call upon God as Father, when that works, when it doesn't work for some people. We also got into the holiness just a little bit. And I want to spend a little more time on that holiness, about what it means to be holy. Only because I think so much of our days, we spend, rushing through a million things, and maybe we have a fleeting moment about God, but, you are sitting in a sanctuary, so let's be honest, right? There is a direct access for a lightning bolt, so we will be honest about who we are. We'd like to do a whole lot better about walking in the holiness of God and knowing that God is holy. We'd like to be more intentional about our relationship with God and reflecting on what does that mean to have a God who is holy and our relationship with that God. So, as I was thinking about that this week and going about my days, I tried to be more mindful, to think more about God and what God's holiness might mean. Trust me, I'm no better at any of this than the rest of you. And I kept thinking, all right, I'm going to do this. Today I'm going to do this. So I'm in the shower and I'm committing myself. I'm praying to God. By the way, a shower is a great time to pray. It's quiet. I think that's where I learned to pray more as a mama, because most of the time they didn't come in. Most of the time. But that was my time, right? So here I am in the shower and I'm praying and I'm thinking, all right, God, help me walk with you and be aware of you today. In all that I do, let me look upon your holiness and see your holiness. This is my prayer, or something like it. And yet, by the time I step out of that shower dripping wet, I'm already frustrated and angry. I got 14,000 things running through my brain about what I got to do today. I'm putting them in order. And I already lost sight of God. Yeah, before I got dry. Before I even got dry. So I recommit myself. And I think, all right, come on, Lisa, you can do this, right? So as I'm going about my week, I'm trying every once in a while, reminding myself, where do you see the holiness of God? Where do you see the holiness of God? Or what is holiness? I don't even know. How do you sort out what that is and what isn't it? But it was interesting, as I was going about my week, there were a couple things in our house that jumped out at me. Things was a high chair. Now this high chair is very precious to me. This high chair was handmade by my father. It's made out of cherry. And every year, for I don't know how many years now, I have said to my beloved, I really need to refinish this high chair, because it's been through a lot of children. Not only our children, but now our grandchildren. And the high chair tray, the thousands of times that this wood has been washed and dipped in dishwater, it's showing its wear and tear on the edges. And you can see you can see where the tantrums happen too from the children, where they pounded their little forks or spoons, and there are little gouges in it, and there are scratches. And if you look really carefully on the inside edge, there's a couple little baby teeth marks. And it's precious to me, right? The other thing I came across was a recipe. This recipe is a recipe that was written in her own handwriting by Scott's grandmother It is her sugar cookie recipe. I've only made it once. By God, I couldn't make it like she did. I think she lied. And she took it to her grave. However, my daughter can make the cookies, and they turn out just like, as she called her, Grandma Greats. And she will always call me, I made Grandma Great sugar cookies today, Mom. Actually, both of the girls will do that. Both Ariana and Isabella. I made Grandma Great cookies today. And every time they call me and tell me that, I have this image of sitting around their very humble table in their very humble house, and always sitting on the table before the meal started was a tiny saucer with exactly one cookie each. Sitting there waiting, after you cleared your plate, mind you, that you could have one of those cookies. Without fail, there it was. My recipe is stained where I've left my coffee cup so it has a ring, you know? It's got other places where obviously I wiped the butter and the flour and shook off that recipe. And yet it's on pretty paper and in her handwriting. Both of these things are so precious to me. But what makes them special is I can hear both my father and Scott's grandmother, who, by the way, Scott's mother still wonders how I got this recipe. Because she could never get it. But both would be angry at me if those things sat up on a shelf, never to be used and only to be seen as precious. In fact, I'm pretty sure my father would have come up out of his grave and grabbed a hold of me and said, use that high chair, it's why I made it. So they've been used, because that's what they were intended for. I think about God's holiness this week, and I think about the fact that God is not a God who wants to be put on a shelf and just revered, but this God who bent down on earth, who created you in God's image, with God's holiness in exactly every single one of you, baptized in the waters of baptism, created in God's image to share God's holiness with the world. I think about the joy, the love, the laughter that came around these silly little tangible things that someday will